Okay, so we are now 10 seconds in, which is generally when the audio picks up. So today we are, of course, doing the stream right about 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, because that's what's turning out to be the best time for me to do my streaming right now. And today what we're going to be working on is actually sewing together a plushie that's already been put together, and that's already been crocheted. And parts of it have been sewn together already, but we are going to be sewing together this cute little dinosaur. I've been crocheting it while working. I want to get the legs sewn on before I finish sewing up the neck, because that will give me a chance to see just how his head should be fitted, because I don't really want it to hang down like it is currently. I want it to be upright at least somewhat, but I need to get these legs sewn on first. And you can see I've already partially attached them, just a couple stitches each, so I can place where they're gonna be. Okay. So you guys are gonna have seeing my yarn needle and stuff. I'm gonna try to work over here where you guys can see it better, but we'll just have to see how it goes. So, this, by the way, is a needle that I use for yarn. It's got a wider neck to it, which makes it nice and easy to get that yarn through. Eye's the term, not the neck. Okay. Now, I want him to stand as upright as I can. So, and if you notice, I have not added stuffing to these legs yet, and there is a reason for that. I want to get them in place before I apply the stuffing, because if I can get them in place first, then I can apply the stuffing when there's just a small gap, and I don't have to worry about the stuffing falling out while I am sewing. So it's just a, hey, make life easier on me. Okay, so we want to go up a stitch. Okay. Now, what I tend to do when sewing on these, by the way, I can see chat. Unlike my gaming streams, I can see and respond to any comments that people make. So feel free to ask questions, make comments, tell me about your day, and I will happily respond. What I like to do, by the way, is I go underneath a stitch that's in from the crocheting. Of course I pull the yarn right out of the eye of the needle. That's great. Okay. For those who are interested in the life of Mason this week, I took my Proof of Learning Test 2 for work, and of course passed it. This is unsurprising, given that I've already, done the job before. I know what I'm doing. But went ahead, took that test, passed it. So we are now going to be starting tomorrow, moving into the next week of training. I have another test that will be on this coming Tuesday. Each one of these gets me a bit closer to actually being back on the phones again. So my classmates are all doing really well too. I am thrilled with this. The first time I got this job, back some time ago, most of my classmates were very disengaged, not interested. I think we started with a class of like 28, and by this point we were down to like 10-ish. And those 10, yes, they made it to the call floor. However, by the end of the 2 weeks of on-the-job training, we had gone from 10 to 5. And we eventually ended up, now one of them that did stay, that was in my class, is no longer there, but it's not because he left. He actually stayed until he passed away of COVID last year. I got the news from another coworker who did stay, and so he had made it up into a managerial position by the time that he contracted and passed away from COVID. And I'm very proud of him. He was an excellent coworker, and I am very sorry that he passed on. He was a great guy. Anyway, but of the coworkers that I trained with there, by the end of the on-the-job training, we were down to 5 because there was a mix-up in the training information, and the workers who were helping us with the on-the-job training had been led to believe that we were a second week of on-the-job training class, which meant that we should have by then known what we were doing, known what the systems did, and not really needed a ton of help from them. But the problem was we weren't a second week training class. We were our first week, and they were very upset and annoyed because we didn't seem to know anything about what we were doing, and they thought that we had just basically, treated the class and our previous week of training that we had not gotten as just a fluff-off thing, and so they were annoyed and upset, and they made it very clear that we should be doing better than we were, which, of course, sorry, I keep flipping this around. It's really awkward to work on something like this because you're going from, I'm sewing from the inside out, and that means I'm having to flip it around a lot. Anyhow, they did treat it like we had obviously just been blowing off our training, not doing a good job, and so the workers that I was training with were very upset. They felt that every week would be like that, and since it was the first week, that was not a good harbinger of things to come, and so most of them left without ever going any further in their training, which, completely understandable. I'm sad that it happened because quite a few of them I really liked. I would have liked to continue to work on alongside, but I also understand that, if you're doing a job and you're just starting out, if people are treating you like you're slacking off and not doing the job when you're still supposed to be learning it, then yeah, I completely understand their reasons for leaving when they did. It did not make the company look good, let's say it that way. Those of us that did stay, though, we were very close because we had gone through that trial by fire, as it were, and we'd made it out the other end, and so, me coming back to the job is actually because one of my former coworkers who had stayed on had contacted me when they knew I was looking for a job and was like, hey, we have overnight shift, which is, they knew that was why I'd left, was not being able to get overnight shift. We have overnight shift now, and they're paying more, and, you could come back, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm going back to a job that I really did enjoy. It's kind of a rare thing when you find a call center job where you're doing something that you actually... This, by the way, is the stuffing. It is just the standard polyfill, fiberfill, whatever you want to call it. It's not cotton. For my very small plushies, the micro dragon I made, and the micro octopus, I've been using thread ends, so yarn ends from other projects where I had cut off a portion of the yarn. Okay. That is a nice firm plushy leg now. Our dinosaur will stand good and firm. But a friend of mine suggested, along with the yarn ends, I could try saving the cotton that comes in pill bottles. And so, now, I don't tend to buy pills that come in bottles with cotton that often, but when I found out today, while refilling a medication, that particular medication comes in a bottle with cotton in it, I went ahead and saved that, and I plan to use that for another project that is still in the works. I've been crocheting these during training whenever we have time that I'm not having to write or anything, primarily because, as I explained to my trainer, and he is perfectly okay with, I think better when my hands are busy, I focus better when my hands are busy, and he has seen that to be true. Yes, I'm crocheting during class, but I am also actively engaging and listening, and so he has not had any issues with my performance. In fact, he has suggested that he's going to kick me out of training and put me right on the phones, because obviously I don't need the training that much. My fellow trainees are all like, nope, 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 you're not allowed to do that. We want Mason here. So that's fun and enjoyable, knowing that they are appreciating me and that he recognizes my skill. And of course, as I explained to him, I would prefer to complete the training because I can always use a refresher. Because some things have changed. Not a lot, but there have been new banking regulations released. They have released new procedures and policies that I like to know about before I actually start taking calls again. Such as this particular company has, it's a bank, and they have done away with overdrafts. Or not overdrafts, but they've done away with the overdraft fee. Let me rephrase it that way. So they don't charge people a fee if they are overdrafted anymore, which is really nice. You know, that's great. That makes life much easier for the consumers. So, you know, look at that. There's one leg. He just got 3 more, and then we can focus on getting his head to not be limp. And, you know, nobody wants a limp-necked dinosaur, right? Nobody wants many limp-necked things, frankly. Maybe a geoduck? I don't know. Are those supposed to be limp-necked or not? Is it even a neck? I would have sworn it was a foot because it's a mollusk, and well, no, it would have to be it couldn't be a foot because they're... Anyhow, probably most of the people watching have no clue what a geoduck is. It's a type of mollusk, which I guess I just explained that, so you don't really need that much. But it's known for having a really long neck thing. Frankly, it looks like a penis to me. But I'm also a pervert, so lots of things look like a penis to me. Okay. This is a stuffing stick. Now, I'm sure with previous things you guys have seen me use the end of the crochet hook. Or if you haven't, well, that's what I normally use because I'm lazy and don't want to go find my stuffing stick. But, as you can see, it actually gets those yarn ends in nice and tight, and it looks a lot better if you use the stuffing stick instead of the end of the hook. Okay, next. Now, when you're using the yarn needle, I have several, by the way. The plastic ones I use for big plushies like this. The smaller ones I tend to actually use a metal yarn needle because, one, the yarn I'm working with is much smaller, and this would leave huge holes in the space between those. But in something like this, it's not a big issue. It fits right into it. Okay, so this one is going to be sewn on. I need to stop sewing from the inside. It actually makes my life harder. Okay. But it makes it look so much better. So, where were we? There we go. Alright, so we're going to go here and under. Heck. Nope, nope, nope. I try to go through the holes where the stitches were whenever possible, instead of going through... Where'd that... Okay, it was that one. Here. Instead of going through the stitches themselves. And I primarily do that because it kind of hides the holes that would have been made by the yarn needle. Because you don't want to leave a bunch of very visible holes when making a stuffy. You want it to be as neat and tidy as possible, especially if the stuffy will potentially be going to a child. Because if you leave a bunch of holes and you give a stuffed animal to a child, that child is absolutely going to try and stick his fingers into those holes. His or her. Little girls like dinosaurs too. But they're going to stick their fingers in the holes. And they're going to potentially pull that stuffing out, and suddenly you're getting a frantic call from the parent that the stuffy was made for, going, "My kid ripped all of its stuffing out. What do I do?" And you can either explain to them, okay, here's how you restuff, or you can do what I do and say, okay, well, since you live close, would you like to bring the stuffy by and I can repair it? Or if the person does not live close, you can say, okay, would you like to mail the stuffy back to me and I can repair it? Because it's just easier for me to repair the stuffy than it is for me to try and walk somebody through restuffing without using like video software like Zoom or something, because while stuffing these is not the most difficult, explaining how to do it can be. Especially if you're wanting to do the stuffing without leaving, as I said, those obvious visible holes. Because if you leave the obvious visible holes, guess what? The kid's just going to do the same thing right again. So, you also might notice this is the inside yarn tail from when I started it. For me, it's easiest to just tuck that inside whatever limb I'm sewing up. And then, oh look, that acts as some of the stuffing for the toy. And also, I don't have to sew it in, because it's already tucked inside where the stuffing is. That one, okay. You guys aren't seeing as much of this as I'd like to show you, just because I am having to manhandle it to get it to where I want. This particular one, given the colors, is going to be called a Javasaurus when I get it up in my shop. It will, by the way, be available for sale. I was considering, since I am making it during class, providing it to one of my co-workers as a gift, since she is pregnant and has another munchkin on the way. But given the COVID situation, I don't think that will be quite as well received as it was at a previous job, when at that time my supervisor actually went on maternity leave, and I provided her with a little stuffed blue rabbit. Okay. That was very appreciated, but again, that was pre-COVID. We didn't have to worry about, well, did somebody potentially have COVID in their house and is now sending it to me in the form of a stuffed animal. It's a sad state of affairs, but also completely understandable that anyone would want to take precautions. So, yeah, I think I'll just pop this one into the shop for sale. I'm going to be trying different iterations of it. I actually discovered while starting on the current one that I'm making, because I'm making a smaller micro one of these, just like I made the micro octopus and micro dragon. But oh, hey, I can show you guys, and you'll actually see the colors now, because I've got this new tiny camera. This is the colors of the micro octopus. Who is very, very small, as you can see when I put my finger next to him. Okay, there we go. Finally got to show you the colors. Also, I've got the coloring book page that I did last week on stream, and I can show you the colors on that too. Hooray for the new camera, which is being recognized this time. It was not last time when I got it set up. Okay. So, I'm hoping, since this particular camera actually has a built-in ring light to it, that I can use it for product photography and have it turn out much better than using the external ring lights and my cell phone, because my cell phone's camera is honestly terrible. Can't really do much about it. I dropped it one too many times. It's a thing that happens. And yeah, it ended up with a camera that just does not display that well anymore. C'est la vie, right? That's what I get for being a dummy and dropping my cell phone on a concrete floor. Thankfully, it was only the camera that got borked, not the screen. I've never had to replace the screen. I would like, once I've been at the job, saved up a bit to be able to replace the phone itself. A friend of mine got my current phone is a Google Pixel 3, and I love it, gotta say. But a friend of mine got a Google Pixel 6, and oh my goodness, the camera is so good. It is a 50 megapixel camera compared to my current 16 megapixel. And like, if I want to do product photography, oh man, is it pretty. Now, admittedly, part of this is just envy over the fact that she is a really good photographer, and she takes some amazing pictures and is excellent at, like, staging things, and I am not good at staging. I am not good at any of those tasks. The photography stuff. Can I help you? Oh, you're using the heater to dry. Go use a towel to at least squeeze the water out of it, honey. Anyway, sorry. She is very good at the product staging, the photography. I am not good at those things, as I'm certain anyone who has taken a look at my Etsy shop has seen. Which, by the way, if you have not, it is at Cuddlewish Creations at etsy.com. That is my Etsy shop. I swear I've linked it in the chat before, but it is up and active as of January 1st. I know that I'd said before I was going to make it active on December 1st, but then I had the issues with healing post-surgery, so I ended up delaying it, but it did get made active on January 1st and has been going ever since. Feel free to drop by. I offer lots of custom colors on the plushies that I sell. So I would love to make any of my viewers a plushie of their very own. And these Sauruses, once I have gotten them completely sorted on how I'm doing them, will be going up in the shop as well. So keep an eye out for that. My goal, as stated last year when I was discussing goal setting and plans for this coming year, is to try and add one new plushie item per month. Not one new plushie per month, but one new option for items that are custom. So instead of it being like, okay, I did another color variant of the same cuttlefish and it is up for sale, it'll be, no, here now you can get dinosaurs as well as cuttlefish and squid and octopus and rabbits, and the custom superhero dolls that remain my big ticket item, but are extremely customizable. And I need to get much better pictures of the one that I've made for my partner, which now, by the way, is finally residing in a good display place. It is along with all of the pop figures on a special shelf above his work desk. So instead of randomly ending up on the floor, on the cat tree, on the bookshelf, and just kind of being scattered here, thither, and yon, it now has a dedicated space. And I very much appreciate that. It means that it feels like he appreciates the hard work that was put into crafting that plushie. Now, if only we could get him to do the same with the Dalek plushie, which actually took me more time and effort to make. Okay, so. Alright, Coffee Saurus now has 2 legs. Gotta stick this in. As I said, yarn tool, and you can just poke that yarn end right back in. Right, dinosaur now has 2 legs and sort of stands up. I have a feeling this neck is going to be an issue. I'm trying to stuff it so that it stands up a bit, but he's very top heavy. Alright, so back legs. We will go ahead and I'm trying to ensure that these back legs end up mostly even with the front legs to give him a more stable stance. We will see how that goes. Okay, so that one, so there. I did like seeing how the colors in this particular yarn played out. I like how he has this gradient of lighter brown to darker brown to lighter brown to tan, you know, and upwards from there. I think he looks really good. He's a very cute little dinosaur. So we will hopefully be making more things with this yarn later. But for right now, he's going to be my only Coffee Saurus, because I have other colors of yarn that I also want to try with him. I've got the one that I was originally planning for the memorial plushie, which, by the way, I am still working on, but it is not as easy to do during work hours, since I have to pay attention to the color shifts from one portion of the body to another. And so that one is kind of going on in the background. It's not being done during work hours, unlike the dinosaurs, which are You know, I'm just using one type of yarn, and any color shifts are done entirely by the yarn, which means that I don't have to pay attention to them. And that is why Coffeesaurus is getting sewn up today, and Monster 2.0 is still in progress. Once I am out of training, then I will not be on camera during my work hours, which will actually be, it'll make it easier for me to focus on the plushies. Of course, I'm going to set them aside anytime I get a call, but that's just par for the course when I'm working. You know, that's nothing strange. But because sorry, that one pulled a bit of stuffing out, so I had to pop that back in. But for right now, Monster is being worked on when I am not on camera, including not on Zoom, apparently. Not Zoom. This is not Zoom. This is Twitch. Right. I can word, I promise. Anyhow. So he is getting worked on. It's just being slower because of the work schedule and stuff. The having to be on camera during class kind of stinks, gotta say. Like that's just annoying. I get why. I mean, there are people who, if given the opportunity to be off camera, just would not pay attention, would not do anything during the course, would try to skate through. I am not the kind to do that. I'm going to pay attention anyway, but I absolutely understand why they would insist on us being on camera, to make certain that we are paying attention to class. Hold on, I've got a message. Sorry, a friend of mine was sick earlier today, and they are feeling better, and I'm just wanting to, there we go, let them know that I'm very happy that they are feeling better. Okay. Alright. But yes, I understand why they want us on camera. It's annoying, but I get it. Because I know people, and I know how people act, and I know what people will do if given the opportunity to do so. I have been in a classroom situation as the instructor, and I know how easy it is for people to get the feeling that, well, I don't have to pay attention. And they do that enough when they're in the classroom. Working from home, it's just far too tempting to spend your time on, the phone or playing video games, things like that. I know that when I finished my proof of learning test early and had nothing to do because I finally finished up all of my necessary specialty training stuff. Compliance, that's the word. When I finished all of my compliance training and I had finished my proof of learning test, we're given 2 hours to take that test. And if you're like me and you finished up early and you run out of compliance, well, there's not much you can do for that 2 hours, because I'm not allowed to go back into the virtual classroom until the test is over for everybody. Because of the way things are set up, the trainers are all in the virtual classroom discussing how to help people who need it. And of course, they don't want anyone who has finished early to be overhearing that this or that person is struggling. So they basically say, okay, do independent study. If you have any compliance that needs done, go ahead and get that out of the way. But don't come back into the classroom until everybody is done. So great. But I ran out of independent study to do. For one, because anytime I have free time up until now, I have been getting that independent study in because I don't like being behind. Okay, so stuffing this leg now. And this might be a shorter stream than I'd planned. I'd planned about an hour, maybe a bit more, but we're at 35 minutes, and I'm almost done with leg 3, and I've just got one more leg and the head to sew on. I guess I can show y'all the coloring page from last week once I'm all done with stuffing our little friend here. That leg is overstuffed. And that can happen, by the way. You can stuff a leg a bit more than you want. You want to try, if you're sewing together a plushie, if you're stuffing a plushie, to ensure that all of the legs are about the same stuffed. Okay. Because you don't want certain legs to be thicker than others. It makes your plushie look weird. Just like you want to try and make certain that all of the areas are smooth, not lumpy. Nobody wants a lumpy dinosaur, right? Yeah. I feel bad that you guys can't see this the same way that I'm seeing it, but we've tried the, okay, let's put this so that you guys are seeing it from my point of view, and it just does not work as well as we would hope. There are limits to, well, honestly, there's limits to how well my shoulders can balance a camera. I do have the mini GoPro, but I keep not finding the cable that would attach it to my computer. And also, you guys would see a lot of me, like, looking around my house because I'm very bad at paying attention and keeping my eyes on one project. But I think you guys are getting a good idea of what I'm doing. I think I'm explaining it fairly well. Of course, if you ever have questions, feel free to ask. I will pause and explain the process. I will bring the camera closer, move it around as needed. Anything like that, I am perfectly cool with doing. Because I want people to know what I'm doing. I want people to know what they're doing if they ever want to try and make something similar. As a artist and streamer that I adore and follow and watch his videos when I get a chance, sadly they're generally at times of day when, if I'm not working, I'm sleeping because I don't do mornings. But when I can view them, I love just about everything that Zero Reynolds does. I love the things that his wife Catherine Reynolds does. They are an amazing couple, and I wish all the best for them. And I think that if anyone who is watching me would like to see things about mini painting, game design, building terrain, anything of that nature, especially in the D&D tabletop role-playing game universe, they should absolutely check out Zero Reynolds on Twitch. And if they want to know about, like, well, I don't think she's streaming anymore. I just realized that. I was going to say Catherine Reynolds is an amazing author, and she was, for a time, doing workshops for people to explain the writing process, how she handles it, And those are... Am I doing... How was I doing this? Oh! This one I was sewing from the outside. Okay. Anyhow, she was doing how-to workshops for writers, which are incredibly useful, incredibly amazing to view. If you are an aspiring writer, please, please, please watch a workshop or two, or ask questions, not of people who have said, please don't contact me with questions. If someone has said, please do not contact me with questions, don't contact them with questions. It's just good sense to listen to people when they have things that they will and will not discuss or talk about. It's just like how Neil Gaiman, who is also an amazing writer, has made it very clear that if you send him something you have written, he will not read it. And he has a very good reason for that, because if he read your work and then came up with something very similar, even if you sent him that piece of work and said, hey, feel free to use anything in this, you saying that is not legally binding. And if you were to come back and see that, hey, he used this bit that I put into that thing that I sent him, he could get in big trouble for using your work, because that's a form of plagiarism, even if you flat out said, feel free to use these ideas, these concepts, these characters. No, he can't do that. And so he would much rather you just not send him stuff. And he has made that very clear on his Twitter, his Tumblr, anywhere that he engages with the public. He has said, don't send me stuff. I will not read it. I'm certain it is very good, but I have good reason not to read it. Please don't send it to me. And if you proceed to send it to me after I have said this, and I will first just delete it and let you know in a polite email that, hey, don't, please. There are legal reasons not to. And if you do it again, he will then block you. He will delete the message again and then block you so that you cannot send him messages anymore. However, he will happily respond to Twitter messages and emails asking questions, things like that. So, I've been following him on Tumblr for quite some time. I didn't even realize at the first who he was. I just saw, hey, here's these cool things being tossed out. I like the concepts, the ideas. I had never read any of his work. I had seen the movie Coraline, but I didn't actually at that time know it was his. So I've been following him for ages and just didn't know who he was. And I'm pretty sure I started following him because Ursula Vernon follows him, and her work I was well aware of, and I've known her since back when she was still doing erotic furry pinups. Bet most people didn't realize that about her. Again, excellent person, excellent artist. Highly recommend her writing since she started doing that. Anyhow, but yes, if you are an aspiring writer and have the opportunity to attend a writing workshop, highly recommend it. Very good for your development as a writer. Basically, just do what you can to keep learning, to keep advancing, and, of course, write. If you're wanting to be a writer, you kind of have to write, and it's hard, believe me. I'm doing a self-imposed challenge this year of trying to write a short story a day. I have a bunch of saved up prompts from Tumblr, and I'm just, each day I pick one prompt, Sometimes I pick 2 if I have time and energy. I wanted to do that today and just have not had time or energy. But pick a prompt, write a short story. In my case, I'm posting them on Archive of Our Own because, you know, it feels good to post the story somewhere that people can read it too. But yeah, if you want to write, you have to write. If you want to learn to do things like these plushies that I'm making, you have to do them. You can't just go, oh, that pattern is so cute, and then never crochet it. It's not going to work. You're not going to learn if you're not doing it. I mean, you can watch me crochet or sew all day long, but you're not gonna learn to do it yourself until you actually are doing the crocheting or the sewing or anything. Because that's not how skills work. We don't learn primarily by osmosis. We learn by action, by engaging in the topic or the activity. So much as I wish I could just, you know, crochet away and then say, okay, and that's how you do it, and now you can do it too, and you be able to do so, I would not be doing any favors for any of you if that is what I was leading you guys to expect. While we can learn from reading things, seeing things done, sometimes you just have to get your hands on the material and do it yourself. I mean, every time? Not necessarily. I've learned a lot about tasks that I don't have access to. Okay, this leg is staying not quite fully stuffed for just a little bit because I am out of yarn on that leg. So I'm going to have to go and get a little bit more yarn to finish him off. But we now have 4 firm, solid dino butt. Here. There we go. So once we get this head dealt with, we will have a nice firm foundation for our dinosaur. Okay, we're going to turn back this way now. There we go. So, we got to do something about the droopy head. We have our yarn end. We need to stuff this neck a bit more so that it will hold that head up some. I might pull, if I have enough left over once I finish with the head, I might use some to sew the neck so that it's up a bit more. Though he might end up just tumbling over face first if I do that. We'll see. We shall see. If not, well, good. But if it does, oh well. These things happen. His tail, by the way, is a little understuffed because with it being a little understuffed, you can actually pose it a little bit. His body is firm enough. It allows for posing even without him having an armature. As I've mentioned in previous streams, I do like, for larger plushies like this, to have an armature that I can use to give it more shape and to give it more form, but it is not something that I require of a plushie. And it's kind of a, if I can do it, wonderful. If not, the fact that he is firm enough I don't need one is actually awesome. I love when plushies can be posed, because it can make them come to life for people. But it's okay if they can't be too, because we don't want, especially if we're making something for a little kid, we don't necessarily want an armature inside it, because it reduces the ability to wash it. And when making plushies, again, especially for small children, washability is important. Little kids, I love them, but they are gross. And you don't want to give some poor new parent who is already struggling with time and energy levels a toy that can't just be tossed in the washing machine and they can forget about it. You don't want to do that to a new parent. It's just mean. So by making certain that our toys don't have that armature, if they are going to a small child, then we are making life easier for that parent. Because this guy, once he's done, he'll be able to be tossed in a washing machine, and that'll be it. He won't need more than that. He's so cute already. I love him. We're going to add a little bit more stuffing to that neck. And then we will finish sewing him up. Okay, this is a trick that a lot of plushie makers don't mention in their books on things. But when you are adding stuffing to something that is a tube, it will clump. And all you have to do is treat it like a Play-Doh snake. Just put your hands on either side and roll it a bit. And that will help to pull that stuffing all straightened out so it doesn't clump up like that. I honestly think that that should be kind of like Amigurumi 101 is, hey, here's how to prevent those clumps. But it isn't, and I don't know, well, it probably isn't, because a lot of people just keep adding stuffing so that everything is as clumped. You know, it's all one big clump. Because you can't have weird clumpy lumps if everything is so stuffed that there's no room for them. Okay, we are reaching the last bits of his neck, so here in just a few we will see how well he can stand with his head up, and if I'm going to need to do that trick I mentioned where I can seam his neck together against his body to force it to be upright. I am trying to sew this from inside, because again, it does help to hide the stitches a bit. It makes it look smoother and nicer. Just also makes it a pain in the tail to do sometimes, so it's worth it for the finished product. I just keep reminding myself of that. Worth it for the looks. Okay. I've only got 2 more stitches before he will be fully connected with head and neck. He is lumping up again right here. There is a definite lumpage issue on that spot. Okay. It's okay. we will cross that bridge when we come to it. Right, this should be our last fresh stitch. I do like to go back and stitch right into the initial stitch that I used for the connection, just to kind of smooth it out a bit. Okay, so, and once again, we go in and under. I was actually hoping for this week's stream, by the way, to do some cooking for you guys, but I can't quite figure out how I would safely get my laptop into the kitchen to do it. So until I figure that out, no cooking for you guys. At least not from me. I'm sure there are streamers who do cook on stream and show off. I mean, and honestly, the stuff I'm making is not particularly fancy or frou-frou, so it's not like it would be anything new to most people that might be watching. Well, maybe it would be, I don't know. I was going to be making the potato pancakes. Notice I did not say latkes, because they're not. These are actually made with pre-packed mashed potatoes. Okay, so. Alright, so. He has his head, but he still falls over. We are going to bring that head up. And how we're going to do it, I have carried my yarn all the way through his neck to here. Well, you can't see that. My hand is in the way. To here. So it's all the way back at his body. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a stitch. And it doesn't have to be fancy or anything. It doesn't even need to be really that hidden, because when I pull it tight, it's going to disappear. But we're going to pull that stitch through, and that's going to tighten his neck so that it stays up some. Now, we're going to again go into the body and come out under a stitch, and we're going to do that same process in a second place, going back the way we came. So now, that head is staying up some on its own. Now he is still top heavy, so he still wants to fall down and put his nose on the ground. I can maybe tighten it a bit more. Maybe. Let me see if I'm going to go up and under this stitch and see if I can bring him up just a bit more. It's primarily that his head is very heavy compared to the rest of him. So yeah, of course he's going to be top heavy. His head has those great big safety eyes that give him such a beautifully expressive face. Do it right there. That might be enough. Still falls over, but I'm going to tighten these stitches up. No. Turn him, show you guys, or turn the camera so you guys can see what I'm doing. Basically, at this point, I'm just trying to tighten things so it hides those stitches that I've been putting in for shaping. I don't want it to be obvious that he's got these, so make sure we're going to go over one more. pull that neck up a bit more. Right. You guys really can't see this too well, but it's okay. You don't need to, because the finished work, once it's tied off properly, will be all you really need to know about. Now, to tie this off properly, I'm going to have to do something, again, a little bit of, not quite fancy work, but trickery, shall we say. So, as you can see, I've put the yarn out through here, and I can tighten it, then go down here to the leg. Now this particular leg is actually the same color as the yarn end that I'm seaming things up with. So that makes it an easy place to camouflage what I'm doing. So I'm getting that nice and tight. So see, nope. You really can't see those stitches now. And I'm going to pull it good and tight here. And then this is where the actual hiding part comes in. So I've got it good and tight. Now you can't see again. Now I'm going to dip into this, pull that almost all the way through, but I'm leaving a tiny bit of the thread out because I'm basically tying a pretty well invisible knot. Now you can see that stitch in one place, right there. But that's it. You cannot see it from the side. You only can see it if you know what you're looking for. And now I can tuck this yarn back inside his leg, just like I did with the yarn when I finished the legs and sewed them on. And you also, looking here, really can't see the knot. So I've effectively made an invisible knot to hide that. And unless somebody plays with him very, very roughly, that shouldn't be an issue. So only thing I have left to do is this tiny bit of leg that has to be sewn up. But otherwise, we have our structurally sound Coffeesaurus, who is at least semi-posable. Because I can quirk his tail however I want. His head doesn't really quirk around, but oh well. And now that he's got that structural piece, if you look, he is freestanding with his head up, which was my goal the whole time. So, there we go. He still wants to fall forward, but that's okay. Leg placement is a big part of this with him. Alright, so turns out I did end up going at right about an hour. I'm going to swap over here, show him off again. He's cute. I like him. And I did promise I was going to show off the coloring that I did last week on stream. find that page again. There it is. Now that you guys can see colors, you can see how llama is pink, sloth is blue, and it looks yellow, but it's supposed to be green. Curtain is red, etc. Also cute. I got more of those crayons that are actually multiple colors now, so next one I do should be more colorful. We'll have more options. Okay. I do want to thank everyone who came out to view the stream. I hope that everyone had fun watching me sew together the plush. I hope that that I was able to educate you guys on some of the tricks that can be used by plushie makers to make a more uniform plush and to hide those stitches in part. Shaping, using those yarn ends to create your shaping, things like that. But what I really want is I want to hope that everyone has a beautiful rest of your week. Remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I'll see you next week. Bye.